Hello everyone and welcome to the first non-recommendation video on this channel. If you can't tell already, it's a tier list video. Now you may be wondering, anime student, have you run out of ideas for this channel already? And the answer is probably. But in all seriousness, I'm sort of hoping to link this to a main channel video at some point if I can ever be asked to script it, but I'm sure we'll get around to that at some point. Now, One Piece itself is one of my favourite anime mangas. I'm not sure where I put it, but it's definitely up there. And I thought, do you know what? Let me rank the arcs, because I do deem some of them to be my favourite arcs in all of anime manga, if I was doing like a general ranking. So, without further ado, let's get into each one and explain why I've put them where I have. And, of course, before we do get into this, there are going to be spoilers for the One Piece anime and manga, so if you're not caught up or you don't want to be spoiled, probably best turning it off around now. Now, with regards to Romance Dawn, I think I'm going to have to put it in B tier. There's nothing necessarily wrong with it, it's a good arc, it introduces, obviously, Luffy and Zoro, but I don't think I can put it in A or in the best arcs because it's only like 3 episodes, there's not really much more substance than that. So the next one is Orange Town. Now, I really liked the introduction of Buggy, and it was interesting to see how they changed it in the live action, but I think this is another one where I have to sort of put it in B. It's too short to really have a massive impact on the series. I know it introduces a player that is, in the main cast later on, but it doesn't have enough substance in it to sort of push it further for me. Now the next one is Syrup Village. I'm just going to leave that there. It's a bit longer, but yeah, it's just not as good in my opinion. I mean, I enjoyed the villain and I enjoyed the introduction of Usopp, but at the same time, it felt kind of boring at some times for me personally. Barity is up next, and I think that's actually going to have to go and see as well for me. The Sanji backstory was terrible. I've heard from one of my friends who actually had to skip to the manga to read it because of how slow it was in the anime. I did like the fight between Zoro and Mihawk, and that's the only thing that's stopping me from not putting it in D, but I really don't think it has enough in it, and there's not enough sort of quick or good moments in it to push it any higher. I know I started losing interest a bit during this arc especially. The next arc is Arlong Park. Now, with Arlong Park, I'd probably have to put it in A tier. I know that's not a controversial opinion, really, because people seem to love it. I love it. The fight between Arlong and Luffy. Obviously, you have the other mini-fights and the whole Nami backstory and everything to do with that. Probably one of the saddest backstories in One Piece. And then the whole putting the hat on Nami was, very symbolic, and I really liked that moment. It's probably what made me fall in love with One Piece, if I'm honest, because, it brings the crew together, and, it makes some of the sluggy moments from the arcs before worth it, I would say. The next is Logtown. Now, Logtown for me has to go in B. I really liked the whole dragon bit, and Smoker as a marine I really enjoy. There's just so many memorable moments from Logtown, like Luffy in the bar and the whole execution thing that was really cool. I really enjoyed it anyway. And I would say it's B. It's not as good as Arlong Park, but there's no way that it's as bad as Syrup Village. For now, I'm going to put it at the top of B. Buggy's Crew Adventure Chronicles. I'm going to put that in D. If I'm honest, I don't remember much, and I'm thinking if it doesn't stand out to me, then it probably wasn't very good. That's all I'm going to say. Reverse Mountain. Now, this is a difficult one because the first time I watched it, I would probably have put it in D. It felt very boring to me, but I think, learning about Brook and the whole link to Laboon, I'd probably have to put it in C. I feel like the moments you get in Thriller Bark really sort of make the arc a bit better in hindsight, so I'm going to put it in C. I don't think I can put it any higher than that, really. Now, Whiskey Peak. I know Reverse Mountain is technically the start of Alabasta, but I think Whiskey Peak is where it really picks up. I would have to put it in C, though. I don't feel like there's enough in it for it to be, in B. It's good, it introduces some of the Baroque Works crew, but for me it's not good enough to be any higher than that. Now the Diary of Kobe, it's okay. Obviously we get a look at Garp, which obviously we later then see in post Enies Lobby. However, I can't really put it any higher than D. There's not enough that happens in it for it to be any higher. Obviously we get the introduction of Bogard, who featured quite heavily in the Netflix show, but has sort of very been absent in the anime and the manga. So I'm not really sure where I stand on that. Little Garden, this might be semi-controversial, but I've always liked Mr. 3, even before the whole thing with Marineford and him joining Buggy's crew. I think I'd actually put this in B. I really liked that point. And obviously Little Garden, I believe, has the Mr. Prince moment, which, is a pretty cool moment from Sanji. It's where I actually started liking him as a character, because before that point, I thought he was a bit annoying, if I'm honest. Now, Drum Island, that's got to go in A. It's probably the second arc for me that goes in A, just because Chopper, really cute, that's not controversial. Chopper's backstory, it's incredibly sad, but I also really just like the whole message we get. I feel like we have seen Luffy liberate islands before this, of course, but it's the first one to me that sticks out significantly, and I think it really sets a precedent for how the series moves on after that. Also, the whole thing about Nami being ill and Chopper's grandma and everything, such a cool setting and just such a cool storyline for the arc. Now this might be slightly controversial, but I put Alabasta in the best arcs of all time. This is probably one of my top 3 One Piece arcs. It's amazing to me. The final battle, the introduction of Robin, the whole thing with the eagle, and just everything else about Alabasta, the setting, Ace, which is one of my favourite One Piece characters. I feel like there's a slight bias from me, but I really do like Alabasta. I think it has to go up there for me, just because, partially the significance it has for the rest of the series, and partially because the characters in it are great, in my opinion. Next up is Jaya. Now, obviously, apart from the whole Bellamy slap and the learning about Noland, it's an okay arc. I think I'd have to put it in C, because there's just not enough substance, like I say, to put it any higher. Obviously we get the introduction at the end of Doflamingo, which obviously holds a lot more weight later on in the series, but right now I liked Bellamy as a character, but I can't really put it any higher than C. Now Skypiea, from what I hear, it's where a lot of fans drop the series, or will skip it entirely just to get to Water 7. Skypiea, in my opinion, it was an okay arc. At times it definitely did feel a bit slow, but I think for the majority of the time I enjoyed it. Enel was a cool character, and although it was a bit of BS that Luffy was able to defeat him because of the fact he's a rubber man, I'm not sure, but I think B is where it belongs. I can't put it any higher because it's just not that good, but I don't think it deserves to be in the sort of cesspit that is the C tier. Now, Long Ring Long Rand arc, I've heard a lot of people dislike this arc. I thought it was okay. I think I'd put it in C. I think a lot of people would probably put it in D or maybe F. I thought the games were very interesting. I didn't realise half of it was filler until I actually watched it all. But in general, I think it's a really, really good arc. I would recommend not skipping this one, because I think people skip Skypiea and this just to get to Water 7. But I think it's a cool arc. It sort of gives you a refresher between, such content-heavy Skypiea and Water 7. So I really enjoyed that personally. Now Water 7, I'm gonna have to put it at the top of A tier. I know some people probably put it in the best arcs section. I really enjoy it. The whole bingo moment with Sanji, the reveal about Lucci and CP9, and the whole iceberg story. It was really interesting. Luffy v Usopp, there's some absolute great moments throughout all of this arc. However, I don't think it, for me, is better than Alabasta or on the level of Alabasta, so I just can't put it up there. I feel like Alabasta for me is the staple of a amazing One Piece arc. It's a really good arc, but just not that level for me. Now next up is Enies Lobby. Talking of really good One Piece arcs, that is another great one for me. I really enjoyed the whole introduction of Gear 2 and Gear 3, the fight with Lucci at the end, the significance of the Merry and its last journey. And, interestingly, one of my favourite moments from Enies Lobby is actually at the end when a Marine rusts Zorro's sword and means that he has to get another one. I know it sounds very insignificant in the grand scheme of things, but it was really interesting to me that, such OP Devil Fruit powers existed that we'd not really seen before. And I just think the whole arc was amazing. Frankie's backstory, Robin's backstory is another one. It just ticks every box in my opinion, and that's why I have to put it in the best arcs of all time. I think for me it's probably top 5 anime and manga arcs of all time in general, never mind just in One Piece. Post Enies Lobby, I'd probably put it at the top of B. There's cool moments in it, the Ace v Blackbeard fight, the whole reveal Dragon is Luffy's father, and that Garp is his granddad, and the whole escape from Garp. But, there's not enough substance in it to really do anything higher than that, really. So the next one is Thriller Bark. See, for me, it's probably a bit controversial, but I'm going to put it in C. Is it worse than Skypiea? Yeah, do you know what? I'm going to go out on a limb here and say Thriller Bark is worse than Skypiea. Now, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the Brook scenes. I enjoyed the fight for Shisui. But the rest of the arc just felt very, very drawn out at times. There were some cool moments, like obviously Nightmare Luffy and Usopp v Perona. But a lot of the characters and a lot of the fights just felt really dragged out and unnecessary. Obviously there is the bit at the end. Do you know what, actually I'm going to put it in low B tier because I think the nothing happened moment really just bumps that up slightly. Yeah, it's going to have to stay in B tier. It can't be on the same level as Whiskey Peak on reflection. So the next one is the Sababody Archipelago Summit War arc. Now, with Sababody, it was interesting to see the worst generation, and I've never been more satisfied in my life to see Luffy punch that celestial dragon. So I think I'm going to put it in. I think I'm going to put it in A. I really enjoyed it. Law is one of my favourite One Piece characters, and to finally get introduced to him and his Devil Fruit was amazing. The ending as well was immense. Like, I've never really been on the edge of my seat as much. Obviously, I knew they all survived, but that sort of level of uncertainty as to where do they go or what's actually happening to them, sort of had me biting my nails, I think. Now, Amazon Lily. I'm gonna have to put it in B. There's certain reasons why I like this arc. And of course it's the Luffy v Boa's sisters. That's exactly why I like this arc. Really good fight. But I don't think it's good enough to be an A. It's not bad enough to be in C though, in my opinion. I think I'm gonna have to put this one in C, about the Straw Hats' adventures. It was interesting to see what they're all doing in the time skip, but it's very disjointed. It's very hard to follow sometimes, but I don't know if that's because I'm a bit of a mong. But it's not really good enough to be in B, so I'm just going to have to leave it in C. Impel Down. Do you know what? I'm going to put that in A. I really enjoyed Impel Down, the whole Bon Clay sacrifice. Luffy working with Crocodile and Jinbei and Mr. One. Buggy being like a main player. Mr. 3 coming back. Someone I really enjoyed, like I said, in Little Garden, and then for him to come back and have a little role was quite interesting. And Ivankov, what a character! How interesting! It was just a really good combination of characters, a ragtag group now that Luffy's group wasn't there, and I really enjoyed that. And I think it constitutes being an A. Now, Marineford, a lot of people would probably expect me to put it in the best arcs of all time, but I'm going to put it in A. It was good, there's some amazing fights with the Whitebeard crew, obviously a very sad ending with Ace, Luffy really being a badass and punching above his weight, and I really just enjoyed some of the cool dynamics we got with the characters, Shanks turning up, etc. But I don't think it's good enough to be, it's not on the level of Alabasta and Enies Lobby for me. It's good. In my opinion, it's probably worse than Impel Down. I really enjoyed Impel Down, so maybe I'm just, slightly clueless as to what makes a good arc, but I can't put it above an A, really. Post-war is probably going to have to go in B. If I'm honest, it could probably be an A. However, The whole backstory with Sabo and Ace felt very drawn out at times. Like, I gathered that they need to, like, I get that they need to sort of explain who he was and all that for later on in Dressrosa, and to sort of give context as to what Ace was saying when he died. But it genuinely did feel like a few of the episodes could probably be halved or shortened down, because there was a lot of information that I felt was either repeated or just straight up unnecessary. Now, Return to Sarbodi, you're probably going to have to go and see. It was cool seeing the Straw Hats come back and defeat the Pacifistas that they'd struggled with, but there's not really much to go on. The whole storyline about the fake Straw Hats was cool, but, it sort of got old after, like, the first episode. Now, Fishman Island. If you're a Sanji fan, turn away, because, as we all know, he was never there. Fishman Island for me is a B. At times it definitely did feel very, very boring, but some of the fights were cool. The whole symbolism around racism and the fishmen and the whole Jinbei backstory. I liked Hordy Jones as a villain. The fact that he basically took, like, crack and then could fight, really gives a lot of meth heads a run for their money, I guess. But I think as an arc in general, it's quite interesting. And I really liked Neptune, and the whole fact that Shirahoshi was a ancient weapon, that people could be ancient weapons, sort of blew my mind a bit. But yeah. Now the next one is Punk Hazard. For me, it has to go in A. A lot of people don't like Punk Hazard, and I will agree. The map sections, as soon as I saw that map come up in an episode, I knew I was in for a long fucking ride. But I did really think that Punk Hazard was a good arc. It had Caesar, which was an okay villain. I sort of preferred him after Punk Hazard, but in hindsight you look at it and you think, oh, he's okay. Monet, the fight with Zorro was very cool. Law being there, like I say, is one of my favourite characters, so him just being there was cool. Frankie getting his transformation. I feel like, it's just banger after banger really with Punk Hazard, but there are definitely drawbacks. Some of the episodes felt slow, but it wasn't like Fishman Island for me, where the slows sometimes outweighed the good. I do think that Punk Hazard sort of was good enough that it stays in A. I mean, especially seeing as it introduced Kiemon and Momonosuke as well. Now, Dressrosa is probably also an A for me. If I'm honest, it was slow at times, and I feel like a lot of people will stop the series here if they didn't stop at Skypiea, because it's so fillery. I mean, not really, but it feels like it. But I feel like the end of Dressrosa, especially, all the fights and the matchups you get there, the fact that Doflo was getting 2-on-1 versus Law and Luffy, and obviously Gear 4 as well, I think it's just amazing. But, I mean, I can't put it in best arcs of all time. One, because it felt way too long. Two, because the arc was too long, really. I mean, it felt like there was a lot of stuff that they could probably have cut out, but that's just how One Piece is. Now the next arc is Zoe. It's probably gonna have to go in B. I really liked the whole samurai reveal. The Reizo is alive was mind-blowing. I was sort of shocked and very confused as to what the fuck was going on. But the whole lead into Whole Cake, I think, was quite interesting. The fact that Sanji's been taken, and Bege, I think his name is Bege Capone. The fact that he was back, one of the members of the Worst Generation, was really interesting for me. So I would put it in B, but obviously I can't put any higher because there's not really any massive standout fights or anything like that for me. So next up is Whole Cake Island. Now, it's just, do you know what, I'm going to go on a limb and I'm going to put it in B. This might get me killed, but I genuinely thought a lot of the musical numbers were very annoying. I thought the fights, apart from like the Luffy Sanji fight and maybe the Luffy v Katakuri fight, everything apart from that just felt very slow for me. The plan took way too long. There's some definitely funny bits in it. Like, I feel like this is where One Piece's comedy shines through really well, but yeah, I can't put it any higher than a B. It's just not as good as arcs like Punk Hazard or Dressrosa for me, which is quite surprising because I know a lot of people will say Whole Cake is their like second favourite One Piece arc. Now, the second to last arc we're going to be ranking is the Reverie arc. Now, the Reverie is a gap between Whole Cake and Wano. I think it was interesting to see that Lucci was still alive. I mean, we all knew he was, but to sort of see him as CP0 now, and, you know, if I'm honest, it shocked me. And then to see all of like Luffy's friends interacting was very interesting. I'm going to put it in B. There's not a load of content in it that can really be said to sort of push it any higher, but I think B is where it belongs, really. And finally, we have Wano Country. Now, it's got to go in best arcs of all time, even though it is probably going to be about 190 episodes when it finishes, maybe even 200. I'm not sure how long the last bit of Wano will take. I mean, not to spoil if you aren't caught up, but the start of Wano, slightly slow in my opinion, but as soon as it sort of picks up after the Odin backstory and the whole raid on Onigashima, I think it's amazing, if I'm honest. It definitely is too long. It would be my top arc. It would be my second favourite arc if it wasn't so fucking long. Some of the power-ups are amazing, and where it is right now, I'm really enjoying it. I haven't watched the last few episodes, but I hope to get caught up. But, I mean, in total, I know it's pretty good. And I know the arc that we've got after it, Egghead Island, is apparently really, really good too. So, hopefully, it's only onwards and upwards for the One Piece anime. So that was my ranking of all of the One Piece arcs. If you agree or disagree, feel free to comment. But if you have enjoyed this tier list video, drop a like. I might do another one at some point. I might not. You never know. We'll see how this is received, I guess. And we'll see if this actually makes it into a main channel video or not. But thank you all for watching. And please subscribe to the channel. Peace.